Hello everyone, Luciano Oliveira, Oliveira Lawyers. One more live stream. Today is Wednesday, April the 24th, 12:30 Rio de Janeiro time. I see we have a couple of likes. Thank you so much. We are just getting started and you guys got the likes in place. I really appreciate that. Please let me know the topics of your interest so we can get started. All right. So while you guys are still warming up with the topics of interest, just remembering, or letting know, like for those who are not following the news, no need for a visa if you are a U.S., Canada, or Australian citizen until April 10th, 2025, and that was the fourth time that the Brazilian government has postponed the enforcement of the visa requirement. All right, we got Bill. Welcome, Bill. Always happy to see you around. Bill is asking, Oi, Luciano, can I open a currency account from outside of Brazil? Or is it better to open one when I'm there? Okay, Bill. So traditionally, opening bank accounts in Brazil, just probably like everything else, it's it's full of different steps and requirements. There is a lot of bureaucracy and red tape. Okay, so for most people, Bill, they are not going to be able to open a bank account until they have the so-called RNM card. Okay, the RNM card is the card that you're going to acquire as a resident in Brazil. And a good thing is that you're going to get this card for any type of longer-term immigration benefit that you get, right? So it's not just for instance, permanent residents, but even for those who are acquiring the digital nomad visa, which is like, in my opinion, like the lowest type of immigration visa that's going to give you access to the RNM card. So all of the residency routes are going to give you access to the RNM card. As usual, let me share a link with you so you can see exactly what I'm saying and you can follow up on your computer or your phone, right? So here is a link. If you, well, actually Google is not allowing me to copy the link, but basically just, Google for RNM card in Brazil, and you're going to see the card that I'm talking about. This said, particularly for high net worth individuals, some Brazilian banks, they're going to be willing to open a bank account even if you don't have the RNM, okay? And in this case, you need to ask for a non-resident bank account. Okay, and again, they're gonna, this account is like a cumbersome because it has like special features because you are a non-resident. There is a lot of restrictions. There is a bunch of people in the back office monitoring the use of the account. So these accounts, they are usually expensive and limited, okay? Not ideal, but if you are a non-resident, right, like if you're not residing in Brazil, that's actually the correct type of account to open. A good bank that you could look into is going to be Bank Santander. All right, Bill, you got a lot of stuff there. See how far you can get. Kate, oi, como é que tá? Tudo bem, Kate? Bom te ver por aqui. If both the retirement and golden visas are paths to citizenship, why not just get a retirement visa and buy a cheaper property? That's a good question, Katie. So, the same thing happens in other in other countries. Like if you look at Portugal, right? Like I like to compare Brazil to Portugal because like they are sister countries. You have the Portuguese language in both countries, and the Brazilian culture, of course, is a spin-off of the Portuguese culture because, as you know, like Brazil was colonized by Portugal, by just Portugal, right? Like in other countries, sometimes you have influence from diverse countries. In Brazil is just like Portugal and no one else. So we are almost like Portuguese people, and there are actually treaties between Portugal and Brazil, and these are two very close countries. So the same reality you're gonna see in Portugal, right? Like you have the route for the retirement visa, which in Portugal they call the D7. Is not a retirement visa per se, is what they call passive income visa, okay? And interesting enough, in Portugal you just need about $1,000, and in Brazil you need $2,000, right? That shows how Brazil has this kind of self-image that we don't need to work hard for people to come to Brazil, right? Of course, I'm not like supporting this understanding, but I think it's pretty clear that like from the immigration, from the Brazilian government perspective, Brazil does not need to work hard. Maybe all other countries do, but not us, okay? That's the view from the government. So Brazil, $2,000 a month for retirement. Portugal is, I think, 820 euros as we speak, okay? So it's actually probably less than $1,000. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? But so in Portugal, you have the D7, which is the passive income / retirement route, and you have you still have, although they're trying to kill the golden visa, and the idea here is that when you get the golden visa, you're gonna get 4 years out of the bat. Okay, so you get 4 years. And next time you renew, like it's renewed as the permanent visa in Brazil. So it makes your life easier. It makes your life easier. The retirement visa, on the other hand, like usually they give you like 1 year at the beginning, and for the following years they are probably gonna make sure that you send in the $2,000 a month. Which many of our clients, they don't need $2,000 a month to live in Brazil. Okay, so this could be an explanation, but I guess that yes, that could be a strategy, Katie. So if you are, and we have another client actually. We have another client who just hired us, like not just hired us, like probably like a month ago, and he was pursuing a property in Rio de Janeiro. He was pretty attached to this property, like he visited a bunch of properties. He wanted to buy this property, and he was going to buy, for the purpose of getting the permanent residency in Brazil. But unfortunately, like the seller, she couldn't understand. Actually, I think she wouldn't care about his requirements, about how to send the money, like the way we structure the contract. And after, I don't know, like 3 different, drafts for the contract, the seller said, listen, I'm not going to accept these terms. My attorney is saying that I should get, the down payment on the day of the signing. And that would not be feasible, right? Because this client, he would be sending money from abroad, and we can have like this transaction happening on the same day that he's signing the contract. So the transaction never went through. And his idea is exactly like this, just like you said. You know what? Like, I mean, I'm going to move forward with the retirement visa, and then I'm going to buy the property as a local, okay? And then, I can buy any type of property. I don't need to buy 1 million reais and so on. So, very similar mindset, okay? That's a pretty good idea, Kate. Olayemi, welcome to the community, Olayemi. Let's see Olayemi's question. In filing a visa application, What does data of legal representative mean? Well, it means like, for instance, in all our applications, when the immigration gets our applications, they are gonna have like a power of attorney, and they are going to have like the information of our law firm as the representative for the immigrant. So when the analyst is going through the information, they understand this information is being provided not by the applicant themselves, but by our law firm. Okay, so legal representative just means who's representing you in the application. All right, Kituel, it seems like one would need the retirement visa before being allowed to open a Brazil bank account. Is this so? Again, for probably 95% of people, yes. Okay, unless you get the RNM, you're going to have such a hard time opening this bank account that even though it is possible, okay, particularly for high net worth clients, most people, they are gonna, end up giving up on the huge bureaucracy and red tape to open the non-resident bank account, and they are gonna just wait until they have the RNM card in their hands, and then they are gonna be opening the account without an issue. All right, Bill, thumbs up. Thank you, Bill, for the support. Let's see who else we have over here. Charles Martin. Welcome, Charles. So Charles is asking, let's say someone buys a property for 700,000 reais in Fortaleza. After hiring your services and after all the fees involved, how much would the total cost be? Would it be, let's say, 900,000 reais? Not really, Charles. That's a huge, that's a huge markup. So the markups, they work kind of like this. For the, when you buy a property in Brazil as the buyer, you're going to need to pay the transfer tax, which is most of the closing costs. You also need to pay two different registries. Okay, the first registry is going to be, and I'm going to write over here, first registry will be the cartório de notas, where the closing takes place. Second registry will be the registro de imóveis, where the new deed, which we call, to make things confusing, registro geral do imóvel, will be issued. All right, so you need to pay, the property transfer taxes. You're going to pay two registries. In most of the country, you're going to need a sworn translator to participate, and there is a bunch of other minor closing costs. Altogether, we like to say, listen, it's usually 4 to 5% of the property amount. So here, let's think about 5%. We're talking about 35,000 reais. Okay, 35,000 reais. Very common question we get here at the, in our consultations. What about, the realtor's fee, right? And this is because if you buy a property in the U.S., in the United States, usually you're going to have like a buyer's realtor. Buyer's realtor in Brazil, they are almost non-existing, okay? With a few exceptions, not surprisingly, of like foreign citizen realtors working in Brazil, and then they bring from abroad this concept of a buyer's realtor, right? And then they could charge you additional, or they could, basically split the commission that's going to be paid by the seller to the seller's realtor, okay? But customarily, there is no such a thing as a buyer's realtor in Brazil, right? There is a realtor for the seller, When you go visit the property, you're going to be dealing with this realtor, and then there is going to be this kind of make-believe situation in which the realtor is going to be representing both parties, right? But of course, like the realtor is representing the seller. The seller is the one signing that is going to pay the realtor's commission, and the realtor is going to be bending backwards for you to proceed with the transaction no matter what. Okay, that's pretty much a summary of how it works. Now, in addition to this cost, then you can have our cost. We work under two different approaches. One approach is what we call like the block of hours, okay? And we sell 5 hours. We sell 5 hours for 5,000 reais, so it's 1,000 reais per hour, roughly $200 an hour. But you can use this time wisely, like for the key components of the transaction, right? Like reviewing a contract, I don't know, like ironing out some kind of issue with the negotiation, or due diligence, and you pick, right? So we do have like many clients who say, listen, I don't need the all-inclusive. I need you to help with only like the key points of the transaction. Other clients, they are going to hire us only for the money component. Okay, that's super common. The person has, I don't know, like has a Brazilian spouse, and the Brazilian spouse has a lawyer in the family. So the lawyer, the local lawyer, right, is going to be assisting with the transaction itself, but the lawyer has no clue about how to bring money from abroad. Okay, and for those of you who do not know, monies do not come into Brazil as you just wire money and the money shows up. That's not what happens. Like there is a huge compliance process every time, like substantial amounts are sent to Brazil. So, it's very common for people like in the middle of the transaction, realize they don't know how to send the money, or they are unable to send the money. For some reason, the seller cannot receive the money. And then they're going to hire us only for this component, okay? Only for this component. Usually, we're going to charge something around $2,000. It depends on the amount. Most transactions, we're going to charge $2,000 just to assist with the currency exchange component. And the good thing is that we within this service we emulate the escrow, right? Because another concern, as you know, is Brazil does not have escrow accounts, and you don't have title insurance. So by using our currency exchange service, like we work with a partner currency exchange bank, and the currency exchange bank is going to park your money until the day of the closing, right? And then when we know that the transaction is on its way to occur, the closing, right? The closing is going to happen. Then we send an instruction to the bank to release the funds to the seller. So it's not just like troubleshooting the cross-border component, but equally important to time the release of the money with the closing. Okay, so this is another service that we offer. And then the third approach that we offer for real estate transactions is the all-inclusive. And the all-inclusive, we don't price upfront. We need to know the transaction. It's somewhat common here at the firm. People send an email, say, listen, I don't need a consultation. I just want to hire you. Okay, and we say, listen, that's not how it works. We need to know about your transaction. We need to know about you. To make sure that we can properly serve you, right? Like we need to make sure that we are a good match, all right? If we are not a good match, guess what? You're not going to be happy. We are not going to be happy. So we need to know each other before bringing someone for a real estate transaction. I hope that makes sense. All right. Olayemi, since I do not know anyone in Brazil, what can I fill in as the data of legal representative? Olayemi, in theory, like you don't need a legal representative, okay? So Brazil does not require, although I think it is pretty advisable for you, right? Like immigration is not something to be taken lightly, particularly if it is something related to your life in another country, and you're doing plans, and you're planning a lot of stuff around your immigration, right? Like, so we do not recommend you to try to handle things that you don't understand. But in theory, you don't need a legal representative. Okay, so if you don't have a legal representative, that's it. Like you're not gonna provide a legal representative. Okay, Olayemi. All right, let's see who else we have over here. We have Ronnie Dio. Welcome back, Ronnie. Good to see you showing up in our live streams. Ronnie, do you have a customs broker you recommend? I would like to import my motorhome. Ronnie, 95%, I would say 97% of the time, it's not worth the trouble, all right? Like Ronnie is asking a customs broker you can recommend, I would like to import my motorhome, right? So in Brazil, like to import vehicles, like it's just like everything else. I hope I'm not, I don't sound like a broken record, okay? But everything in Brazil, a lot of red tape, bureaucracy, true fault, okay? So in Brazil, you don't import motor homes, you don't import vehicles, okay? You're gonna buy locally, right? And if you say, well, but I'm a millionaire, I have $5 million, $10 million, I wanna bring my Porsche. If you want to bring your Porsche from the United States or another country, you got to be one of those two scenarios. The first scenario is you're going to buy a brand new one, and then you're going to be able to import, and you're going to spend a boatload of money on the broker to bring your Porsche from abroad. And most probably than not, it would be a much better deal to just buy in Brazil. Okay. The second scenario, your Porsche is a collectible. Okay, maybe you are just like Seinfeld, right? Seinfeld has, 150 cars, and out of these 150, I'm sure at least 50 or 70 are Porsches. And the Porsches, if they are older than 30 years, then yes, you can import this car as a collector, right? But always a bad idea to try to import stuff into Brazil unless you're doing professionally and for a business. All right, Ronnie, I hope this helps. Charles Martin, if let's say someone is a good match and they would like you to guide them from A to Z, would you charge based off the property price percentage, or would still be an hourly basis? So we usually charge based off the property price. And I understand your question. Maybe the underlying question in your question is like, why would you charge a percentage of the property if your work is going to be pretty much the same, or could be pretty much the same, right? And an explanation is that our work actually changes substantially as the amounts increase. And I can give you a very practical example, like the currency exchange component, right? Like many people who hire us for the A to Z approach, they are going to have the currency exchange component in their heads. Like, this is something I need. I know he's not going to provide on an hourly basis, and therefore I'm going to go for the all-inclusive, right? And the currency exchange alone can help you understand the dynamic. For up to 10,000 US dollars, you just use something like an app, right? You're going to use Wise, you're going to use Remitly, okay? You're going to use Sean, you're going to use PayPal, you're going to use MoneyGram, you're going to use Western Union, you name it. Up to $10,000, zero questions asked. It's a 2-minute transaction, you send the money to Brazil. Over $10,000, you're going to need an actual compliance process to be done by a bank in Brazil. And this compliance process is going to require paperwork and people reading all this boring paperwork, okay? So you're going to be paying for that. And this is going to be done through like the back office of a bank approved by the Brazilian Central Bank, right? And after the $10,000 up to $100,000, when we work with our currency exchange partners, we are basically just providing like a pro forma, a set of documents, and explaining the transaction, right? This could take us maybe a couple of hours or 3 hours or 4 hours. Still, it's a relationship business because you're not shopping. You're not shopping like around for a bank. Like, you're dealing with a bank who has a contract with our firm. So there is a trust component. There is a formal relationship, and we have their commitment that they are going to offer a good currency exchange rate that is usually much better than what you're going to get from Bradesco, Itaú, and so on. Okay? So up to $100,000, just a few hours. When we are dealing with a transaction from $100,000 to $200,000, it changes dramatically, right? Usually, there's going to be a lot of exchange between our firm and the bank, and we're going to involve you as little as possible, but still, we may need to ask you for documents and explain like the source of the funds. If this is coming from an IRA, like if you have savings, we're going to ask you for your tax return, right? So it's a pretty more intensive work when we are dealing with a transaction from $100,000 and to $200,000. Again, when it crosses the 200, guess what? It bumps another level, right? So just explaining from the currency exchange components alone, that the more money you are paying for a property, the more work we're going to be doing on the due diligence, on the currency exchange, on the checks, and so on. Because at the end of the day, again, there is no escrow and there is no title insurance, right? So like in some of the Northeast states, it's super common, particularly now that Brazil is, I don't know, like we're still like going through, it's not like a recession, but for some reason in the Northeast, like we see a bunch of people selling, real estate with a lot of debt, right? So, many of these sellers, they are actually actively trying to defraud creditors, right? So they are running to sell their properties, like they're not making money, whatever, financial commitments they had from the past are catching up with them, right? And what happens is, like, if you buy a property from a seller who has either a lawsuit or, has like hidden debt, or is defrauding a creditor, like, you could have third parties coming after you, even if you did close on the property and got a new deed on your name, right? So all of those things, like, we need to factor in when we are dealing with a real estate transaction. And if you're just buying a property for 200,000 reais, which is roughly like 40,000 US dollars, most of the sellers, they are going to have other assets that you could go after if something goes wrong. But when you're buying a 2 million reais property, a 3 million reais property, then you're not going to have, this possibility, because Brazilians, they don't have like 2 or 3 million reais usually, like sitting around. So therefore, for those transactions, we're going to multiply the number of checks, like the databases that we use, and the number of hours we are putting in. Okay, so I hope that explains, the percentage approach instead of an hourly basis charges. But that's a common question. Okay, so we do hear this question, and we understand, unless you know what I just told you, it would sound strange to charge a percentage of the property instead of, just an hourly fee. All right, Olayemi, data of a legal representative has, an asterisk in red on the Visa app form. So since I do not need a legal representative, what am I to fill on the Visa application form, since it's compulsory to fill in? Olayemi, I'm sorry, but I think this goes beyond, like the advisory I can share over a live stream. We will need to know a bunch of things before giving you this answer. Okay, so I think this goes beyond what we can tell you about. But again, if you are in this type of situation, I think that instead of letting you proceed, I should advise you to seek professional help, okay? Or if you're dealing like, a very common scenario, like if you don't want to, pay a professional service, usually the consulate level, the consulate, Martin, many thanks for the response. You're pretty welcome, Charles. Also for a property purchase, do we have it to visit Brazil for the property purchase, or would this be recommended, or people usually do this remotely from abroad? Charles, so there are different types of buyers. We have some investors that are not going to visit Brazil. They're not going to visit for the contract. You don't need to be in Brazil for the contract, okay? Like contracts nowadays in Brazil, like the purchase agreement, they can be signed remotely. We don't use DocuSign a lot in Brazil, but we have like alternatives, okay? There is ClickSign. There is a bunch of other systems that we use, and we use a lot ClickSign here at the firm, okay? The good thing about ClickSign is that you must take a selfie holding your document. So, ClickSign is really good to make sure that everybody is actually signing the contract, right? Like when you have like an electronic certificate, an Adobe certificate, I don't know, it could be a spouse, you never know who's using the computer. But with ClickSign, the good thing about it is that you really see the person holding the ID. So, it does make it safer from our perspective. And we do like ClickSign. Okay, so for the contract, you don't need to be in Brazil. For the closing, for most people, if you've never been to Brazil, it could be, recommended for you, to go to the closing. So once you have the closing, I don't know, like you're going to check your property and think about renovations if you want. But even for the closing, you could have someone attending on your behalf through a power of attorney. Okay, power of attorneys, they are very easy. They are very easy to create if you are in Brazil. So let's say if you come to Brazil and if you're visiting properties in Rio de Janeiro, we have a lot of clients, they say, listen, I'm going to buy a property, but I didn't find anything I would like to buy now. Can I have the power of attorney done while I'm here? Super easy to be done. You still need to go to a registry physically. We need to arrange things up front. Like there is a good number of hours spent to get this power of attorney done, but feasible, right? It's not crazy complicated, okay? Now, if you are abroad, it changes dramatically because then there are roughly 12 steps that we need to complete for the power of attorney that you are completing abroad. It's going to be accepted in Brazil. We don't like it. We don't like it because in addition to this huge amount of work, there is always a chance that the cartório, that the registry handling your closing is not going to accept for some reason. Okay, there is no single standard for power of attorneys in Brazil. Cartórios, they like to say, well, the lawyers know, you don't worry, the lawyers are going to draft something beautiful and acceptable. That's not how it works. Cartórios, they have different interpretations of the law, and they have a discretion to accept a power of attorney or not. So usually when we are doing a power of attorney, we're going to actually start with the end registry. We're going to say, listen, end registry, you need to give us a template, because if we come up with something and you don't like later, all the work that we're going to be doing with our client is going to be wasted. So you got to better give us a template that you love it, and that's what we're going to use. Okay, so that's our approach to the power of attorney. But it is feasible. Again, like if you are in Brazil, in any city or state, it's a piece of cake to be done. Just busy paperwork, okay? If you are abroad, is also feasible. Sometimes, very convoluted, and there is always a risk that at the end of the day, the cartório is still not going to accept the power of attorney, right? There is also the e-notariado. Okay, the e-notariado is another route, but e-notariado for foreign citizens, 99% of the time, you must be in Brazil to get e-notariado. I'm going to write over here. Okay, e-notariado. So if you get the e-notariado, you could potentially participate in the closing without a power of attorney on your own through a video conference. Okay, so really good, the e-notariado. In Rio de Janeiro, we are able to get an e-notariado for foreign citizens. In other cities, not so much. Okay, like the Northeast, usually registries are not going to issue an e-notariado for foreign citizens. In Rio de Janeiro, yes, we can do it. São Paulo, usually yes as well. So it's going to be on a case-by-case basis, okay? But yes, I mean, we have many of our clients, they want to, just like they come to Brazil once, they get the paperwork done, and then they close from abroad. They, sometimes have friends or, family members who could look after the property and so on. All right, guys, let me ask you to please like our live stream. This is helpful so other people can find this content later on, and you help others with your questions, right? Like, I mean, whenever you are asking a question, there are other people who are not asking this question, maybe because they didn't think of, or maybe because they are shy. So my understanding of this live stream is that it's a kind of win-win situation. We address topics of interest, and of course we are promoting our services here. You see the type of knowledge you're gonna get when you hire us. You getting, answers to your questions and insights to your planning. And if we like the live stream, other people can find this content as well. So that's good for us, that's good for you, and that's good for them as well. All right, Charles Martin, follow-up question. During a real estate closing, will you be the one attending the closing, or would it be the one of the other people in our law firm? It depends on the city, Jason, and it depends on the city, depends on the transaction. For some, higher amount transactions, I usually attend the closing, right? But like in Rio de Janeiro, we have Rio de Janeiro and São Paulo, we have a pretty stable and solid frameworks, and usually it's going to be one of our branch managers, okay? So let me see. So in São Paulo, it's going to be usually Paulo Salles, okay? And in Rio de Janeiro is going to be Patrick Moret, right? Patrick is Brazilian. Patrick is actually a common name in Rio de Janeiro, but the name Patrick sounds like foreign, but it's actually a super common name in the state of Rio de Janeiro for some reason, okay? So Patrick does attend our closings, and as important as our participation, Charles, is that the officer of the registry, they are actually in our network, right? The officer of a registry, they are, officers who, in theory, represent the government. The registry itself is a private entity, but they have a concession from the government to handle the registries on behalf of the government. So we call it like a hybrid, okay? They are private, but performing a public function, okay? Now, what happens is the more closings we have with a registry, the closer the relationship is going to be. And when you are closing in Brazil, you actually have a different registries to pick from, right? You don't need to actually close always with the same registry. So the registries know, listen, if I help this law firm to achieve their goal, they're gonna keep bringing, more closings to my registry. So that's what we do. Like, we make sure that the officers, they are on our side in terms of going above and beyond in terms of making sure that all the paperwork is solid, okay, and making sure that if any concerning situations happen at the time of closing, they are not going to close, right? So in addition to us, we have the participation of the registry officer, kind of looking after the party's interests. Like, they are not just one-sided, but I would say they are on the side of safety. Of they gotta be conservative in terms of assuring that a transaction is gonna be like solid and difficult to attack later on. Because like I told you, no title insurance in Brazil. You can buy a property, have the title transfer to your name, and maybe a creditor of the seller could show up in the future and sue you, because in theory they should have a priority over the property. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Jason Harris, hi Luciano, always appreciating your content. Thank you, Jason. I have a question in connection with the Nomad Visa. Does it allow me to do business and set up a website while you're in Brazil? Jason, it does not. It does not allow you to do business. Okay, the digital nomad, the underlying scenario is that you're gonna be working remotely for an employer outside of Brazil, right? So you have a computer, you have internet, you have software, you have the skills required to perform a work for someone outside of Brazil. So here Brazil is thinking, listen, I want people making money abroad and spending money in Brazil. Okay, so this is the underlying scenario. Like they don't want someone doing business in Brazil. Okay, so now the type of business you're gonna be doing. Or like if you're gonna be opening a company or so on, like this is gonna be like more nuances. But if you think about the principle is that digital nomad is not for you to make money in Brazil, it's for you to make money abroad and spend your money in Brazil. That's what the government is trying to accomplish. Okay, Jason. Jason is complimenting here. The website would be selling products in Brazil as well as working as a digital nomad, right? So yes, I mean, the digital nomad side, again, as long as you're working from someone from abroad, that's okay. The website thing, maybe if you just open a website while you are in Brazil, I don't know, maybe you could be open a website that's in the US, right? And I'm not sure if there would be like repercussions, but it doesn't look like the case. Maybe you're talking about a website in Brazil, right? So a website in Brazil, it does like exceed, Jason, the scope of the digital nomad, all right? Now, not surprisingly, we do see all types of situations. There's people who, there are people who come to Brazil under a digital nomad and they start working formally or more under the table, right? And that's probably common in every single country, super common. I don't know, like you think about California, right? Like, I mean, or, other states like New York, but it's common everywhere, right? Whenever you ask us for advisory, we're never gonna tell you to do anything that is not by the books, right? Like we don't do that. And it does not matter if it is in our live stream or if it is like in our private consultations or if it is during our practice. We never tell people to do things that are not by the books. Okay, different law firms, different perspectives. Just yesterday, like we had a prospect for, the passive income a visa in Portugal. And this person came and said, listen, can you help me find someone in Portugal who would use their address to give me a lease, right? So the person was pretty clearly saying, listen, can you help me defraud the Portuguese immigration system, right? Like, I mean, what can we tell? We can tell, listen, sorry, we are not the right match for your needs, right? I mean, we're not here to defraud anyone, right? We don't want to work with people who are going to defraud others, okay? So just highlighting that there is always the advisory that we're going to give, and there is the reality of life, okay? So just complementing another perspective that, yes, in Brazil, you're going to see all types of things going on, okay? Just another perspective for you to consider. All right, Wasim Shaduri. Welcome, Wasim. I'm sure you've been here before. Welcome back. Divorce rules in Brazil detail how property or money in bank or business is divided after separation. Should property or business be created before marriage or after marriage? was saying this is somewhat common concern we have, and unfortunately, we have clients who cannot help themselves, and ideally, like if you're gonna marry with a Brazilian national, you should be buying your property before the marriage, right? If you buy a property after the marriage, particularly if you are marrying in Brazil under like a regular marriage regime, which is like the comunhão parcial de bens, or regular common property asset approach. If you buy, like a house, if you buy an apartment after marrying, there is going to be a presumption that this property is being bought by the couple, right? And most of the time, for our clients at least, like we're dealing with people who are, in the middle of their lives and careers, so they have accumulated wealth, and now they meet like a Brazilian national, and they are gonna marry and then buy the house, and then sometimes in less than a year they're gonna find out it wasn't what they expected, and now they're gonna be entangled in a divorce, and then there is gonna be a discussion if the property was bought, as a family asset. So avoid aggravation, right? Just use common sense. And if you're coming, like if you are in your 40s, 50s, or 60s, and you're meeting a Brazilian national, I think you should protect yourself. You should know better, particularly if it's gonna be your second or third marriage, right? So first, you do what you gotta do. Avoid the so-called união estável, stable union, or common law marriage, right? Because even if you're not marrying, like if you are living in the same house, if you're benefiting from the relationship, meaning, right, like have action every single day, just because you're not married, it doesn't mean that you are not married from a legal perspective, right? So here is another thing for you to consider. In Brazil, this kind of common law marriage, which we call stable union, is out of hand. It's crazy. Like there is no minimum period of time. There is no need for you to live in the same house. And unfortunately, like some Brazilian nationals, they do take advantage of that. Okay, so the foreign citizen comes to Brazil, they are not careful, and when they see they are entangled in a stable union divorce lawsuit, right? Like, I mean, it's not a divorce. It's like a claim for a stable union to say that, listen, I believe with this guy for a couple of years, we bought assets, like I was a homemaker and he was paying the bills. We were flying around the world, and now he's, like this came to an end, but this was just like a marriage, and therefore I need spousal support. Okay? So just a heads up for you to consider. Was saying interesting question for everybody here at the live. All right, let's go to the next one. Asking again, I see that the number of likes is increasing, but not nearly as many as the number of participants that I see coming and going. So please don't forget, like the live stream so other people can find this content. Like it now. I can see the number of likes, and I appreciate your collaboration. All right. Barry Downing, how are digital nomads treated from a tax perspective? Barry, there is no specific regulation for taxation on digital nomads, and the rule is going to be you've been for 183 days in Brazil and you leave, you're not a tax resident. If you exceed 183 days in Brazil, it does not matter whatever your immigration status is, you're going to become a fully resident from a tax perspective. All right, so you cross the 183 days, you are a tax resident, and you're going to be taxed on your income abroad, right? Because if you're a digital nomad, you don't have income in Brazil, you have income in your home country, and then you're going to be taxed, all right? There are some countries with tax treaties with Brazil, and in this case, like you may avoid taxation in Brazil. But like for the United States, there is no tax treaty. So there is the type of, it's not like a treaty per se, but it's more like an approach. Brazil would give you credits for taxes that you are paying in the U.S., and the U.S. would potentially give you credits for the taxes that you are paying in Brazil. Okay, but yes, I mean, taxation is something you cannot really avoid. And I understand, like, I mean, government, big government everywhere, they are always craving money, right? So they are going to go out of their way to tax people. And even, like, again, if you compare to Portugal, Portugal had the, NHS approach, meaning they would give you like 10 years of almost no taxation, like to entice you to come to Portugal. But even Portugal, like, because they are, like the European Union is kind of upset with Portugal. Portugal is making too easy for people to enter the European Union. So Portugal is starting to like become less lenient with such a things as taxation and immigration, right? So Portugal, last year, they said, a special taxation program was available until 2023, not any longer. Okay, but yes, that's what it is, Barry. I hope that helps. Was saying people outside of Brazil cannot open Brazilian government websites that require a CPF number. Yes, we use was saying a bunch. We use the CPF tax ID. For many things in Brazil, not only the Brazilian government websites, but like if you're gonna buy like airfare, right? If you're gonna travel from São Paulo to Rio, São Paulo to the Northeast, unless you have a CPF, you're gonna be precluded from using all the Brazil airfare websites, right? You could still use Kayak. You could use Momondo. You could use a bunch of things. I don't know, cheap travel, whatever you use, but not to the Brazilian websites. And I was saying it's super easy, right? Nowadays, the go-to route for foreign citizens abroad is like the Brazilian consulate. Brazilian consulate, they have this role of issuing CPF tax numbers for foreign citizens who need to use a CPF in Brazil. Okay, I was saying, so you're right. You do need the CPF number. Just go to a consulate, schedule an appointment. They are going to get you a CPF. Charles Martin, thanks for the response. It's amazing. I'm curious, before the real estate option existed, how did foreigners move to Brazil through an investment? Like, let's say, in the 90s or early 2000s? They didn't, Charles. That's an interesting question, okay? They didn't, right? Or they did, and many would stay illegally until they would find a spouse. Like in Brazil, even if they are not offering you a legal route, through investment, there is like the marriage, there is, like the parental or, childbirth route. There are other routes, okay, that people could use. And if you really love Brazil, and if you are in Brazil, for too long, eventually you may find, right, like a romantic partner. This, relationship can develop, and then you could probably qualify for something like marriage, okay? But yeah, that's very interesting. And, all of the current immigration framework was modernized by President Bolsonaro, right? I'm not going to get into politics. If I do, I would probably alienate half of my audience, so I'm not going to do that. But there was concerning things about the last, Brazilian federal government. But like from the immigration perspective, it was a game changer. Okay, because all of those visas that we are talking today, they were created during the President Bolsonaro administration. So from the immigration perspective, I guess they did what they are supposed to do. All right, was saying thank you very much. You have guided me in very good way. Keep it the participation going. Was saying this brings diversity, like different topics for us to discuss. So thank you for sharing those insights, was saying, and I hope to see you in our future live streams. Ronnie Dio, to follow up, my motorhome is 31 years old. A collectible would still be a waste of time and money. Ronnie, like if you have like if this motorhome has a sentimental value to you, and if you have a lot of money to spend on that, then yes, it could make sense. Otherwise, most probably not. Okay, like usually, and I think that this is the bottom line over here, is not like is not an effective use of your money. Okay, like usually when you do the importing, you pay the customs, you pay the importing fees, and you pay the demurrage, right? Demurrage is like the overstay of a container at the port. And like I'm not sure if I can say this over here, but sometimes you're gonna be asked for monies that you should not be asked. Okay, I'm not gonna go into much details over here. I don't like importing. Okay, I don't like I mean we saw so many things that are not ideal for instance, that I don't like importing. I would recommend you to stay away. Okay, Ronnie. But again, if you have something that's sentimental to you, you have a lot of money to spend, go for it. But otherwise, just skip on the importing idea. Katie, well, I would guess that since Brazil dropped the visa requirement, many people found themselves staying longer than 183 days and thus becoming tax residents without their knowledge. Is this accurate? So, Kate, remember, like the visa requirement, it just means you don't need a visa to enter the country. It doesn't mean you can stay for as long as you want, right? Because you just get 90 days, right? Like if you travel from the United States today, when you enter Brazil, they very clearly say, listen, you have 90 days to stay here, right? It's not like, well, you don't need a visa, go be happy, right? So you have 90 days. And so, like the lack of a visa requirement, it didn't impact or it didn't increase the number of people overstaying the 183 days, okay? Like it's a visa waiver. But even if you have a visa waiver, like you from the U.S., you enter Brazil under a visa waiver. It's not like you get an automatic visa. You actually don't have a visa. You have an authorization to stay. That's the technical term. And the authorization for you to stay in Brazil is for 90 days, okay? And maybe thinking about what would be your next question, like you say, well, but then you can ask for an extension. Until November of last year, extensions, they were almost like being rubber stamped, okay? There was a policy from the prior federal government. The new federal government, the Lula administration, started last year, in January of last year. And roughly in November, like a new immigration framework has been started. And the idea is that they are not going to rubber stamp extensions any longer. So if you want to stay for over 90 days, you need to present a reasonable reason, right? Like, I mean, you're pretty sick, or I don't know, like, I mean, you can't fly because you have COVID, or you were involved in a car crash and you need to figure things out before you leave the country. I don't know, something that is going to, sound like enough reason for the government to give an extension. So all in all, you have 90 days to stay in Brazil. Now, maybe just complementing the answer, yes, if whoever is exceeding 183 days, they become a tax resident. And then what's going to happen, it's a matter of facts, right? Like, I mean, how are the facts going to play out? Nowadays, Brazil and the United States, they don't have a tax treaty, but not surprisingly, they have a treaty to catch tax cheaters, right? So if the person is going to be audited or not, it's another story. But yes, I mean, it does not matter. Again, it does not matter the reason why you are crossing the 183 days, no matter the visa, no matter the lack of visa, no matter whatever you say, over 183 days, you are a tax resident. Okay, now the consequences, what's going to happen is a different story, and it's probably going to be on a case-by-case basis, Kate. I hope that helps. All right, Charles Martin, wow. So it's dangerous for a foreigner to live with a girlfriend in Brazil, considering they could sue for the property in the future if there is a breakup. Yes, Charles, that is very dangerous, right? Like, I mean, and we do get consultations kind of often, probably every other week, of people who just found themselves in such pickle, okay? They started a relationship, they just enjoying the relationship. They're, getting all the action they want. This thing has going for a couple of years, and then when they break up, guess what? There is a lawsuit asking for a bunch of things, okay? That's the reality of life. And in Brazil, the Brazilian legal system is pretty fast to find a stable union or a common law marriage, even if there are no paperwork whatsoever. It's a reality in our legal system. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Now, you also not gonna, avoid leaving because of that. I would just say you need to factor that into your planning, right? That's what you need to do. Okay. Barry, all right, so we have a follow-up question from Barry. I see that we have crossed now the 1 hour mark, so this is probably going to be our last participation of the day. Don't forget, we have another live stream on Sunday. I made sure that the live stream is already scheduled, so if you have another topic of your interest to discuss, go right now to our YouTube channel. You can click on Notify Me. Click on Notify Me, and when you click on Notify Me, you're gonna get a reminder that the live stream is starting on Sunday. So if you are busy today, if you are at work, you have an option to join us on Sunday, and I'm sure that on Sunday you're not gonna have much, or maybe you have, things for leisure, but hopefully you're going to be able to join us anyhow. All right, Barry Downing, is the tax residency calculation 183 days in a fiscal year, or is it 183 consecutive days? What happens if it's 183 days over 2 different years, October 2024, March 2025? Barry, so it's a moving rule of 12 months, okay? It's not a fiscal year. So in your example, October to March, that's going to catch you, okay? Meaning you're going to become a tax resident. It's a movable 12-year period. Another variation of your question is, what if I live, I go back to the United States for a single day and then I come back to Brazil? Do I break the pattern? No, you don't break the pattern, okay? They're going to catch you anyhow, because they're going to say, well, you were outside of Brazil for a day or for 10 days, but we can still see that within a 12-month period, you've been in Brazil for over 183 days. Charles Martin, thank you for the responses. Fantastic live stream. Thank you, Charles. I really appreciate your words. Barry Downing, your lives are always awesome, informative. I'm glad that you know that, Barry. Make sure to join us on Sunday. I hope you guys have a blessed rest of your day.